Okay, we're recording. So as I was saying, I think we're recording. Yay, okay. So as I was saying, in high school, you're under a lot of pressure to kind of create this personal image and this personal brand. And I thought I was doing a good job at it until senior year when I actually had to take a speech class in order to graduate. I had waited until really the very last minute to take this class. And the reason for that was because I was painfully shy in high school. I had my group of friends, but the thought of giving a presentation was just truly something that I never ever wanted to do. So it came time to give the first speech, and I realized that I was going to have to speak in front of my peers at the end of the day. So this speech class was at the very end of the class period. So what that meant was that the entire day, I did not eat anything. I did not really drink anything because I was so nervous. And the topic was talking about our favorite food, which for whatever reason, I chose chicken spaghetti as my topic to talk about. And so you would think, how hard could it be talking about chicken spaghetti? Well, I got in front of the class and I started talking. It started off terribly. And then as I continued to talk, I continued to lock my knees. And for those of you that know, if you lock your knees for too long, and especially if you haven't eaten all day, then you are definitely going to pass out, which is exactly what I did. So I passed out in front of my high school friends as a senior, and that was the way that I left that chapter of my life. So came to TCU, and for whatever reason, I had to sign up for OCO credit my first semester in college. In my mind, I'm thinking, absolutely no way would I ever take this class. I might as well just drop out of TCU because I'm not doing it. But I went to the class. It was terrifying, but I met with the professor every single day. And then I fell in love with public speaking to the point that I got both my undergraduate and my master's degrees in communication. So fell in love with communications, fell in love with learning how people interact with one another. And now I love my job. I'm very blessed with being an advisor in Neeley, but I especially love teaching my evening sections of speech classes just to help other students find their potential. So to make a long story short, really to give you a main takeaway from that is that yes, it can be terrifying, but if I can overcome it, and if I can overcome passing out in high school, which at that time we were in the age of smartphones and they had videos of it. If I can overcome that, then you most certainly can as well. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Okay, so before we talk about public speaking anxiety, I just want to talk to y'all about why public speaking is important. And it really comes down to two things. It comes down to it improving your personal career success. So career growth stems from regularly presenting your ideas, but then also convincing whoever's listening that they should take you seriously. So the more that they listen to you, the more that they look up to you, and then the more you're going to grow. So if you continue to sharpen your public speaking skills, continue to create effective presentations, you're naturally going to become a better communicator, which is going to take you really far in your career path, whatever career you go into. A lot of students that come into my class say, well, I'm an engineering major, so why do I even need to know public speaking? Regardless of the career path you go into, at some point, you are going to have to give a presentation, whether it's to an empty classroom like I'm doing right now, or if it's in front of thousands of people, or even just a pitch to your boss asking your boss for a raise or for a promotion. So you need to be able to feel confident and comfortable going into those types of situations. So going back to public speaking anxiety, year after year, that American people vote public speaking as the top rated fear over anything else. So the fear number 2 is death. Okay, guys? So some people would rather die than have to give a presentation. That is how prevalent it is, which should make you feel less stressed to know that you are not alone. If you put on that Mentimeter that I just had up on the screen at the beginning of this session, if you were that person that put in nervous, I am right there with you. I was terrified to give this presentation when I woke up this morning. I've had the presentation made, I've had my speaking notes, but then when it came to the actual day to present, then yeah, the fears started to raise really high. And what I want y'all to take away from this workshop is public speaking anxiety, the fear of public speaking, never truly goes away, okay? Instead, what we have to do is figure out ways to manage it, okay? So instead of trying to make the anxiety disappear, instead what you're gonna do is turn those butterflies, those nervous butterflies, into positive energy. So I just wanted to break it down and give y'all some tips and tricks on ways that you can overcome it, or not really overcome it, but still just manage it, and then also make for stronger presentations. Okay, so number 1, you absolutely need to know your material. If you practice in advance, if you do the research, naturally you are going to become a lot more confident. If I did not create this presentation 2 weeks ago, and then if I just decided to try to wing it today, my anxiety would have been quadruple what it is right now, okay? So the more that you practice, the more that you know your material, the more confident you're going to be. Secondly, you need to consider the worst case scenario. This is a game that I play in my class with my speech students, that we think, okay, in your mind, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen during a speech? Is it that you pass out? Is it that you forget your information? Is it that your audience is going to laugh at you or make fun of you? Consider that worst case scenario and then think of ways that you could combat it. All right, so whether that is you pass out, okay, you talk to your professor afterwards, you tell them that you were anxious, you move on. If you forget your information, then you maybe have notes sitting on the podium so that you can refer back to those if needed. Your audience making fun of you, guarantee you, especially in academia and higher ed, your audience is going to support you because they probably feel the same exact way that you are about the scenario of presenting in front of others. So look to them for support. Don't think that they're judging you, because most oftentimes they have about a billion other things going on in their brains at that moment. This one, I can't stress enough how important practicing in front of others is. So I tell my students, you need to practice in front of 2 different types of friends. First, you need to practice in front of your sweetest, kindest friend who thinks that you are the greatest thing to ever grace this earth. Because they're gonna hype you up, they're going to tell you that you are doing fantastic, don't change a thing, keep going, you can make a career out of this. That's the type of hype that you need to build up your confidence. But then, you also need to give your presentation in front of your most critical friend. So that person that does not sugarcoat anything is going to tell you, you said like every other word, or you looked up at the ceiling the entire time. Because then that's going to bring you back to reality and it's going to help you figure out what to change for the future. This is something that I do every single time. So the hour before I showed up to campus to give this presentation, I went on a walk around TC with my dog, because that was what was going to keep me in a good headspace. It was going to get me excited for tonight instead of seeing it as something that was completely nerve-wracking. And so whatever it is, whether it's going on a walk, listening to calming music, or listening to hype music that's going to get you excited and ready to go, it could be doing some yoga poses or stretching. It could be reading a book. But a good rule of thumb is that 30 minutes prior to your presentation, You shouldn't be sitting in a chair, stressed out over your notes, thinking of everything that could go wrong. During those 30 minutes, I want you practicing breathing exercises, stretching your legs, talking to a friend. Call your mom, call a sister, call a friend to just talk about life, not talk about what's about to happen, but just to get your mind off that stressful situation. And then this is something that I continue to do, and it was really the main reason why I fell in love with public speaking was because of a class I took my freshman year in college called Interpersonal Communication. The reason why I loved that class was because of the teacher and because of the way that he took command of the classroom, because of the way that he spoke to his students. It made you feel as if he was speaking directly to you, like you were just having a one-on-one conversation. And I was thinking, I want all my teachers to be like that, but then I also want to be in his position, because every single morning when he came into class, he would say how excited he was that he woke up. He was blessed with this job, blessed to work at this wonderful campus. And so he, in turn, inspired me to want to teach, to want to work in this type of environment. But then I also mirrored the way that he taught. Okay, so I had those professors, and I'm sure that you guys too, that just read from, you know, an iPad or from notes the entire time. They may not have a presentation aid, or they just seem uninterested in what they're talking to you about. You don't really want to listen to that professor, and it's hard to stay engaged. Hopefully that isn't the case here at TCU, but maybe a teacher that you had back in high school. You can also watch tons of videos. So TED Talks are an awesome resource, not just to get a good message, but also to watch how they present, because there's a lot of different delivery styles there as well. And if we have time, which I think that we will, I'm going to show y'all a super important video just in terms of time management, but also an incredible speaker as well. And then finally, the biggest challenge that I think any public speaker faces is just being yourself. So it's one thing to practice a lot, to do the research, to even memorize a speech, but then a lot of times when you do that, you lose yourself. So you start to sound robotic, you start to sound as if you're reading from an instruction manual, and that's not what I want you to do. Instead, let your guard down, understand that you are going to make mistakes. I know for a fact I'm going to make a mistake at some point in this presentation. We've already stumbled over a couple of my words, but I'm okay with that, because that way that I'm still just letting it be a conversational delivery. If I were to memorize this entire presentation, I would have lost all of you all by now. You would have been thinking, okay, I'm going to leave. I got my name on the list. I'm peacing out. But so far, I'm keeping all 9 of y'all, so I'm excited for that. But I can't, this is the biggest challenge if and when you take the oral communications class here at TCU. This will be something that you will also be expected to really sharpen, is just to be yourself while also appearing confident and in command. But with that said, I'm talking more right now in the context of when you're giving a speech to a live audience, to people in person. But if we've learned anything from 2020, it is how amazing Zoom is and how much you can use it for your advantage with classes, with group work, all of those different types of things. And so what I want to spend the rest of this evening talking about is just how to give a good presentation over Zoom. But before we do that, I'm going to break y'all up into small groups. I'll probably do 2 breakout rooms of 4. And I just want y'all to talk together and discuss how your online classes are going, because I'm sure that all of you are in at least one online class. So discuss what has worked well when someone presents in Zoom, whether it's in a classroom or another workshop that you attended or another event you watched. So what worked well, but then also what has not worked so well, okay? So what is something that you sat into a class or sat for a presentation, you're thinking, okay, this is not working for me, this is not, I'm not connecting with it. So I'm gonna have y'all break into small groups for 10 minutes, really maybe only like 5 to 8 minutes. And I want y'all to introduce yourselves to get to know one another, and then just talk about these 2 questions. And I'm gonna pop into both small groups to see what type of discussions are going on. So I don't wanna pop in there and it be complete radio silence. Make sure that y'all are having good conversations, and then we'll share with each other here in a few minutes, okay?
right, guys, I don't know why I'm running into some technical difficulties. Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. It's echoing now. That's not good. Let's see. Stop sharing screen. I had this working out so perfectly too. Okay.
All right, so we've had some awesome discussions in the breakout rooms. What I got from you guys was you enjoy Zoom interactions or Zoom presentations that are interactive, which I agree. You know, and we kind of got more on the discussion of classrooms, which was completely okay. But what I heard from y'all was you don't like Zoom sessions where the professor or the presenter is just rambling on the entire time. It can be a little bit tough to keep engaged, which I completely agree with that. What I want to just go over with you guys though is some tips on if you do have to give a presentation, just on things to consider for looking your best and making a good first impression. So first thing is just finding good lighting, right? So, and that's what I was trying to do on my laptop and it was just not going to cooperate. But with good lighting, what I want y'all to do is to find somewhere where the light is in front of you, okay? If you have light behind you, you've probably noticed this in some of your Zoom classrooms with students. If they are sitting in front of a window, you can't see their face at all. It's just basically like a black figure, like a silhouette of a figure, and then bright windows behind them. So you always want to find lighting that's in front of you, and the natural lighting is even better if you can have that. You also need to consider your background. So what I mean by this is if you're sitting in your bedroom, you want to make sure that your bed is made if you're giving a presentation and you're trying to be professional. You want to make sure that there isn't anything in the background that would be considered offensive or unprofessional in any ways. And trust me, I've seen a lot of things in students' dorms when I'm advising them this semester, just everything. But then you also need to consider external noises, and that's why I have a picture of the dog up on the screen. Currently, I'm working from home most days of the week since I'm meeting with students virtually, which means that I have 2 dogs at home that also love to be heard and love to be seen. So when I'm giving a presentation, especially when I'm teaching in the evenings, I move to a bedroom where I know the dogs aren't going to bother me. If they bark, nobody can hear them. So that's something else to consider. If you are giving a speech, so if you're in speech class this semester or in the future, you may not want to give a presentation in your dorm room if you know that your roommate's going to be coming in from class or friends are coming in. And then finally, you want to connect with your audience, which I think is the hardest thing to do over Zoom, but there's some ways that you can combat that. First thing is shock your audience by standing up. I asked one of the breakout rooms if y'all had professors who stood up while giving their presentation if it was a completely online class, and the answer was no. They usually just sit at their desk, they have their slides, and they go through them. I want y'all to step away from the camera and present as if you were presenting to a classroom, just like I'm doing literally right now. Not a single person is in here, but I'm still acting as if I'm giving a presentation. If I sat in my chair, what happens is your language starts to become less formal or less professional, and you just don't see it as an important presentation anymore. It's just sitting down having a conversation. This is something I've noticed a lot in my speech class is the webcam, the line of the webcam. So when you stand up, you want to look to see where your webcam is, and you want to put it in the same line as your eye line, because if it's sitting down from you, then it's going to look as if people are looking down on you, or that you're looking down on people. If it's sitting up from you, that's an awkward angle too. And finally, I know that we are in this age of sweatpants and pajamas, but when you are giving a presentation, especially if it's for a grade or if it's for a business one day, and it has to be over Zoom, even if people can't see your shoes, which y'all can't see my shoes right now, but they're really cute, they're high heels, still dress to impress, because that is internally also going to make you feel much more professional. If I showed up here in some flip-flops because I knew that they weren't going to be seen, my posture would be worse, and I just wouldn't feel 100% like myself when I'm giving a presentation. So that's really just a crash course in all things Zoom and all things just in terms of giving a speech virtually. And I really just touched the tip of the iceberg on public speaking. Like I said, we have an hour to talk about public speaking when there's an entire course dedicated to it during regular long semester. So if y'all haven't taken the OCO credit yet, my goal or my challenge to you guys is don't see it as something that you put off until the last second. I know when I have a senior in my class that they just really didn't want to take the course, because most of the times that those are the students that are most nervous. So see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge when you're taking a class over public speaking, or any time that your boss or professor or anybody asks you to give a presentation in front of others. So that is my challenge for y'all, is to see it as a learning opportunity, because public speaking is just going to help y'all grow and help y'all succeed. And I hope that you guys don't see public speaking anxiety as a crutch that keeps you from obtaining some of your goals, but instead something to manage. If you guys are interested in learning more, or just want to talk to me about how to improve your own public speaking skills, I am happy to meet with y'all one-on-one. If you take what you learned this evening and you're thinking, man, I want to know a little bit more for my presentation coming up, I'll put my email address in the chat feature just so that y'all can reach out. If I can get it to work, there we go. But that is all. Let's see, what time is it? Actually, we're going to do one more thing, because I want to show y'all an example of an incredible public speaker. And this is what I was telling y'all to do on your own, is to find someone that you just really enjoy listening to and mirror your own behavior after them. So this is an incredible message for y'all just to take forward, especially at this point in the semester. It's about procrastination, but also one of my favorite speeches because of the way that he presents himself and acts like himself too. So he's very conversational. So we'll end with this, and then if y'all have any questions for me during the video that popped up during this workshop, feel free to put them in the chat to everybody or just directly to me. I'd love to hear from you guys.
So in college, I was a government major, which means I had to write a lot of papers.
Let's try this one more time. Okay. Okay, y'all show me audio. If you can't, just holler out at me.
College, I was a government major, which means I had to write a lot of papers. Now, when a normal student writes a paper, they might spread the work out a little like this. So, you get started maybe a little slowly, but you get enough done in the first week that with some heavier days later on, everything gets done and things stay civil And I would want to do that like that. That would be the plan. I would have it all ready to go, but then actually the paper would come along, and then I would kind of do this. And that would happen every single paper. But then came my 90-page senior thesis, a paper you're supposed to spend a year on. I knew for a paper like that, my normal workflow was not an option. It was way too big a project. So I planned things out, and I decided I kind of had to go something like this. This is how the year would go. So I'd start off light, and I'd bump it up in the middle months. And then at the end, I would kick it up into high gear. It's just like a little staircase. How hard could it be to just walk up the stairs? No big deal, right? But then, funniest thing happened. Those first few months, they came and went, and I couldn't quite do stuff. So we had an awesome new revised plan. But then those middle months actually went by, and I didn't really write words. And so we were here. And then 2 months turned into 1 month, which turned into 2 weeks. And one day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word, and so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not one but 2 all-nighters. Humans are not supposed to pull 2 all-nighters. Sprinted across campus, dove in slow motion, and got it in just at the deadline. I thought that was the end of everything. But a week later, I get a call. It's the school. And they say, "Is this Tim Urban?" And I say, "Yeah." And they say, "We need to talk about your thesis." And I say, "Okay." And they say, "It's the best one we've ever seen." That did not happen. It was a very, very bad thesis. I just wanted to enjoy that one moment when all of you thought, "This guy is amazing." No, it was very, very bad. Anyway, today I'm a writer, blogger guy. I write the blog Wait, But Why? And a couple years ago, I decided to write about procrastination. My behaviors always perplexed the non-procrastinators around me, and I wanted to explain to the non-procrastinators of the world what goes on in the heads of procrastinators and why we are the way we are. Now, I had a hypothesis that the brains of procrastinators were actually different than the brains of other people. And to test this, I found an MRI lab that actually let me scan both my brain and the brain of a proven non-procrastinator, so I could compare them, and I actually brought them here to show you today, and I want you to take a look carefully to see if you can notice a difference. And I know that if you're not a trained brain expert, it's not that obvious, but just take a look, okay? So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain. There is a difference. Both brains have a rational decision maker in them, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. Now, what does this mean for the procrastinator? Well, it means everything's fine until this happens. So the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel, and he says, "Actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan-Tanya Harding scandal, because I just remembered that happened. Then we're going to go over to the fridge. We're going to see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago. After that, we're going to go on a YouTube spiral that starts with videos of Richard Feynman talking about magnets and ends much, much later with us watching interviews with Justin Bieber's mom. All of that's going to take a while, so we're not going to really have room on the schedule for any work today. Sorry." Now, what is going on here? The instant gratification monkey does not seem like a guy you want behind the wheel. He lives entirely in the present moment. He has no memory of the past, no knowledge of the future, and he only cares about 2 things: easy and fun. Now, in the animal world, that works fine. If you're a dog and you spend your whole life doing nothing other than easy and fun things, you're a huge success. And to the monkey, humans are just another animal species he has to keep well slept, well fed, and propagating into the next generation. which in tribal times might have worked okay. But if you haven't noticed, now we're not in tribal times. We're in an advanced civilization, and the monkey does not know what that is, which is why we have another guy in our brain, the rational decision maker, who gives us the ability to do things no other animal can do. We can visualize the future. We can see the big picture. We can make long-term plans. And he wants to take all of that into account. And he wants to just have us do whatever makes sense to be doing right now. Now, sometimes it makes sense to be doing things that are easy and fun, like when you're having dinner or going to bed or enjoying well-earned leisure time. That's why there's an overlap. Sometimes they agree. But other times, it makes much more sense to be doing things that are harder and less pleasant for the sake of the big picture, and that's when we have a conflict. And for the procrastinator, that conflict tends to end a certain way every time, leaving him spending a lot of time in this orange zone, an easy and fun place that's entirely out of the makes sense circle. I call it the dark playground. Now, the dark playground is a place that all of you procrastinators out there know very well. It's where leisure activities happen at times when leisure activities are not supposed to be happening. The fun you have in the dark playground isn't actually fun because it's completely unearned, and the air is filled with guilt, dread, anxiety, self-hatred, all those good procrastinator feelings. And the question is, in this situation, with the monkey behind the wheel, how does the procrastinator ever get himself over here to this blue zone, a less pleasant place, but where really important things happen? Well, turns out that the procrastinator has a guardian angel, someone who's always looking down on him and watching over him in his darkest moments, someone called the panic monster. Now, the panic monster is dormant most of the time, but he suddenly wakes up anytime a deadline gets too close or there's danger of public embarrassment, a career disaster, or some other scary consequence. And importantly, he's the only thing that the monkey is terrified of. Now, he became very relevant in my life pretty recently because the people of TED reached out to me about 6 months ago and invited me to do a TED Talk. Now, of course, I said yes. It's always been a dream of mine to have done a TED Talk in the past. But in the middle of all this excitement, the rational decision maker seemed to have something else in his mind. He was saying, are we clear on what we just accepted? Do we get what's going to be now happening one day in the future? We need to sit down and work on this right now. And the monkey said, totally agree, but also let's just open Google Earth and let's zoom into the bottom of India, like 200 feet above the ground, and we're going to scroll up for 2.5 hours till we get to the top of the country so we can get a better feel for India. So that's what we did that day. As 6 months turned into 4, and then 2, and then 1, the people of TED decided to release the speakers. And I opened up the website, and there was my face staring right back at me, and guess who woke up? So the panic monster starts losing his mind, and a few seconds later, the whole system's in mayhem. And the monkey, who, remember, he's terrified of the panic monster, boom, he's up the tree. And finally, the rational decision maker can take the wheel and I can start working on the talk. Now, the panic monster explains all kinds of pretty insane procrastinator behavior, like how someone like me could spend 2 weeks unable to start the opening sentence of a paper and then miraculously find the unbelievable work ethic to stay up all night and write 8 pages. And this entire situation with the 3 characters, this is the procrastinator's system. It's not pretty, but in the end, it works. And this is what I decided to write about on the blog just a couple years ago. Now, when I did, I was amazed by the response. Literally thousands of emails came in from all different kinds of people, from all over the world, doing all different kinds of things. These were people who were nurses and bankers and painters and engineers and lots of PhD students. And they were all writing saying the same thing. I have this problem too. But what struck me was the contrast between the light tone of the post and the heaviness of these emails. These people were writing with intense frustration about what procrastination had done to their lives, about what this monkey had done to them. And I thought about this, and I said, well, if the procrastinator system works, then what's going on? Why are all these people in such a dark place? Well, it turns out that there's two kinds of procrastination. Everything I've talked about today, the examples I've given, they all have deadlines. And when there's deadlines, the effects of procrastination are contained to the short term because the panic monster gets involved. But there's a second kind of procrastination that happens in situations when there is no deadline. So if you want to have a career where you want to be a self-starter, something in the arts, something entrepreneurial, there's no deadlines on those things at first because nothing's happening at first, not until you've gone out and done the hard work to get some momentum, to get things going. There's also all kinds of important things outside of your career that don't involve any deadlines, like seeing your family or exercising and taking care of your health, working on your relationship, or getting out of a relationship that isn't working. Now, if the procrastinator's only mechanism of doing these hard things is the panic monster, that's a problem because in all of these non-deadline situations, the panic monster doesn't show up. He has nothing to wake up for. So the effects of procrastination, they're not contained. They just extend outward forever. And it's this long-term kind of procrastination that's much less visible and much less talked about than the funnier, short-term, deadline-based kind. It's usually suffered quietly and privately, and it can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness and regrets. And I thought, that's why these people are emailing, and that's why they're in such a bad place. It's not that they're cramming for some project. It's that long-term procrastination has made them feel like a spectator at times in their own lives. The frustration was not that they couldn't achieve their dreams, it's that they weren't even able to start chasing them. So I read these emails and I had a little bit of an epiphany that I don't think non-procrastinators exist. That's right, I think all of you are procrastinators. Now, you might not all be a mess, like some of us, and some of you may have a healthy relationship with deadlines. But remember, the monkey's sneakiest trick is when the deadlines aren't there. Now, I want to show you one last thing. I call this a life calendar. That's one box for every week of a 90-year life. That's not that many boxes, especially since we've already used a bunch of those. So I think we need to all take a long, hard look at that calendar. And we need to think about what we're really procrastinating on, because everyone is procrastinating on something in life. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey. That's a job for all of us. And because there's not that many boxes on there, it's a job that should probably start today. Well, maybe not today, but sometime soon. Thank you.
All right, y'all, that wraps up our workshop over podium skills. I appreciate y'all sticking with me, and hopefully you learned a little bit. Like I said, please reach out if you want to talk, if you want to chat about anything public speaking related. And I hope y'all have an awesome rest of your evening and take care of yourself. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.